Hello, welcome back to my Super Mario Sunshine modding tutorial series. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to install Super BMD. Go over and hit the latest release, this v2.1 right here, and then just download the zip file. Once you have that file downloaded, double click it and take all of its contents and then just put that into a brand new folder and make sure that that folder's title doesn't have any spaces in it. What we have here is a tool that will dump the 3D models from Mario Sunshine. Those 3D models are in BMD format. That stands for Binary Model Data for short. But yeah, that's what this program is. After you're done that, the next thing you're going to want to download is Blender. You're going to want to download Blender after that. Doesn't matter what version, except that if you do something 2.79 and lower, there's an older version of the script, but anything after 2.79, we have a new script. I will only be showing new Blender, because I encourage you not to live in the past and enjoy all the modern features that modern Blender has and its niceness. Once you have Blender installed, I want you to go to the link that is for Blender MD, and then go to Code, and then download zip. And then do the exact same here for Blender Call. So we'll go Code, download zip. Because these files right here, I'll open one up. They are Python files and whatnot, which is one of the reasons I had you install Python on the previous episode, is because everything on this episode requires Python. So if you haven't installed Python already, do so now. These are scripts that Blender will recognize. And this is for exporting a binary model data right from Blender. So Sunshine only recognizes BMD models, but you can export a BMD directly from Blender with this script. So it's very convenient. Same goes for COL. The COL is shorthand for collision. So if I was doing Blender COL, that mod is for collision. So yeah, there's little modules we can install into Blender. We'll need to put them in a very specific spot in our installation of Blender. So I'm going to use Blender 3.4 as my example because that's the one that I use currently. You'll want to go to inside the folder, Blender 3.4, and let's go inside 3.4 again, and then inside of scripts, and then there should be a modules folder. There it is. Alright, and then right in this folder is a bunch of Python files and a bunch of folders, B types, and a bunch of Py files. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Blender collision, or Blender collision thing, and it has a B types folder and a bunch of other Python files and a README. We're just going to take all this, drag and drop it right in there. I already have mine in there, so I'm not going to do that, but you just drag and drop it right in there. That's what you do. And then for Blender MD, the BMD one, it should be pretty much the same process, except this one doesn't have a B types folder. So you just drag and drop it right into here, which is in your installation of Blender, and then inside that number that is the version, then you go to scripts, modules, and then in that folder is where you want to put all this stuff. So you'll just drag and drop it into this folder, modules, right here. There is one more step we have to do if we want them to show up in Blender. So edit, and then to preferences, and that'll bring up our preferences window. And if it's not already on add-ons, go through here, click onto add-ons tab. There's this install button up at the top. So what you want to do is you want to click install, and then what you do is you find that Python file. Once you've located those Python files from earlier, you'll just want to double click each one to install them. All right, so I'm going to double click rarc.py to install that. And now if we go to enabled add-ons only, and then we go to user, that should show modules that you've installed yourself. These two modules installed here, this one and this one. So let me tell you a little thing about this BMD one. So this is our visual model one. So you'd have to go up, hit install again, get this all here. But there is one thing that you'll need to know about the BMD exporter. We need to give it the file path to Super BMD's exe. So if I have my folder right here, all right, here's my copy of Super BMD, and you can right click, and there's should be copy as path. That should be like an option, and you can just do that, and then you can just paste that right into this box here. And then Blender Collision, there isn't any other things, it just kind of works. The one thing I will tell you about Blender Collision is if you are exporting Collision in object mode, sometimes it just doesn't export. So just go over into edit mode and then go to File, Export, Collision, and then it usually works if you're in edit mode. But yeah, if you install those modules correctly, File, Import, and then you can import a binary model data, or you can import collision, and then there's also export binary model data and export collision. So yeah, you could export and import sunshine models and collision models once those modules are installed. Once you're done with the Blender setup, you'll want to get wiimmsSZS tool. This was obviously made for Mario Kart, but it works all the same. It'll extract SCSs in Sunshine just fine. So what you want to do is you want to click this link, CYG Win 64-bit. Go ahead and download the latest version. Once again, it'll just give you a nice zip file, so we're just going to double click that, and we're going to put the contents within into our own little folder, Windows installer.exe. You can just run that exe. I'll click it right here. Yes. And once you get everything here done, it does recommend for you to restart your computer before the installation process actually finishes, so that everything actually works. So feel free to reset your computer at this time. Something funky about wiimmsSZS tool is that the download page does not come with a sort of bat file that automatically does the process for you. So over here I have two bat files that will essentially you'll drag and drop an SCS file over top of it, and it will extract it or recompact it. Something to note is that you can extract a level file using both of the bat files. It'll work. But when you want to repack your level back into an SCS file for the game to read, the SCS will have compression and be less size on the disk, but the RARC will have no compression at all, but it'll be instantaneous pretty much. So when you're testing things, just compress your stages to RARC, but when you're done with the stage and you're ready to send it to people or into your mod, just compress it to SCS and be done with it. Alright, the final thing you will need to download is the bin editor right here. This is Aug's branch of it. So yeah, what you want to do, just download SMS Scene Reader. Once again, just like the last two times, you know the deal. It's a zip file, so we're just going to double click it, and we're going to take everything here and then just drag and drop it into a nice brand new folder we create. Let's go back to our copy of Mario's Sunshine. Go to Files, Data, Scene. Alright, Files, Data, Scene, travel there, and you'll notice there's a bunch of SCS files. These SCS files are essentially zip files, but for the GameCube. Think of it that way. Zip files, but for the Nintendo. So what we did with that wiimmsSZS thing, and as I mentioned with the compression stuff, that this is our tool to compress and decompress SCS files. Let's say I want to edit the airport, the one that you go to when you start the game. So what I'm going to do in order to edit the airport is I'm going to get this airport.SCS, I'm going to take it, I'm going to drag it over the rarc. That'll bring up this thing, it'll kind of disappear, and then at the top, or I guess at the bottom because Windows is weird, airport.SCS. And that'll be a folder. So this is the levels folder. Every single level has a folder once you extract it, and inside of there is scene and K. So let me explain the way that this level is laid out. So in the scene folder, there is enemies and NPCs is commonly what's found here. Enemies and NPCs. So we got the fish, that's like a fish NPC. Fruit boat, the boat is actually technically considered an NPC. Gatekeeper, that is the polluted piranha. He's an enemy. Kanoji, I believe that's a toad, and one of these is a Toadsworth, but one of them is just a regular toad, the other one's Toadsworth. Then there is Mew, which is a seagull. Monty MA, I think it's like Monty Man. Monty MC is like Monty Common. Oh, no, wait, there's Monty Common. It's just Pianta stuff. Monty equals Pianta stuff. Princess Peach. And the sun. The sun in the stage that gives you a lens flare, the sun itself is actually classified as like a NPC enemy sort of thing. Now, as you can tell, the sun is kind of more of an entity in real life. Like, it's just kind of out there in outer space, heating up the Earth and stuff. So there's nothing really logical about what they consider NPC or enemy, but sometimes there's just stuff like suns, and they're just kind of in the folder here. And you learn it with time, what things are where, but yeah. Now you may notice I kind of skipped over two folders, this map folder and this map objects folder. Let me introduce to you the map objects folder first. So map obj. Over here, we have all of the models that are loaded into the stage. Let me find one, for example, that's nice and easy. Nozzlebox, nozzlebox.bmg. Let's open that real quick. I just have this program installed. You don't necessarily need it, but it's pretty convenient. ReStudios, would recommend. Josh will kill me if I called it ReStudios plural, but it is ReStudios. Oh, this is something. If you see this texture, where it's all bleh, it's all bad, and it says like dammy or dummy, that's a dummy texture. There's things have these BMT files. Sometimes you'll have an object, but its texture, its image that it uses to represent itself, it's like the texture that it uses, is actually stored in a separate file. These objects are really, really annoying, so I recommend never editing these guys. I believe there's a way to edit BMTs, but I've never looked into it. That's a horrible example, but at least you learned something, so I'm keeping that in. Let's go to normal block. That's way better. Alright, looking at normal block, you can see that there is a model, and we can see it in our little renderer here. And you can see it has textures right there in the model. That's an example of like a model that might be in the map obj folder. It's a normal block. So there's mushroom, the one-up mushroom, there's palm trees, shine sprite, shimmer, it's just like some more stuff related to the shine sprite. Water gun is just flood and stuff. Bottles, there's little bottles that enemies drop sometimes. Back nozzle item is also flood. Yeah, just a lot of stuff. Red coin, blue coin, coin. All the like objects placed within the stage are stored here. And the last folder I'll have to explain is the map folder. And it has a lot going on, so let's open up the map folder. So the first folder in the map folder is this camera folder. Right here is dummy camera.bck. You know how when you open a level in Mario Sunshine, you load into a level, it goes like, it makes a little jingle and it shows you where you're supposed to head in the level. That's what these BCKs are. BCKs are camera paths. Basically, like, so you can script out a little camera sequence where the camera pans to a location, and then it pans to another location, and stuff like that. Those are BCKs, are these camera paths. The map folder, this is where the stage itself and the stage-related data is. So let me double-click map, and it'll show you it real quick, and you'll see that the map model is quite literally the map. Here it is, it's the airstrip. Yep, that's the airstrip. And then if I go to c.bmd, that should be the water for the airstrip. And it might not be the best visibility, but as you can see, here is the water for the airstrip. So yeah, this thing also has the skybox. This thing contains all of the actual map assets. I believe it also holds Shadow Mario data sometimes if there's a Shadow Mario mission, because I don't know why Nintendo put it here, but they decided that's where they wanted to load Shadow Mario from, so yeah. The next one is params. This tends to go unused, but fun fact, the airstrip has a bunch of unused parameter files for a bunch of enemies. But yeah, these parameter files, I believe if you put them in a stage, it will make it so like certain things act differently on a per level basis or something. I don't really remember the details too specifically, mostly because nobody ever uses this, but it's here, it exists. The next folder is pollution. This has to do with the goop. Goop has its own visual model, just like everything else. So if I go ahead and I move, there you go. Now you can see the goop that is stored in the game's data. The final folder is the SP folder. This is where sunscripts are stored. Sunscripts are like a very light coding language sort of thing. There's a compiler and decompiler for them. I might make a tutorial if enough people want one about like very basic Sunscript stuff. But I'd probably not be the best for that, and I believe Oggs already has made tutorials for that, so you'd be better off checking out his tutorials on the process. But these Sunscripts are what handle NPC interactions and custom events. As you can see, talking to Peach initiates this weird Talk Peach SP script, and default talk tends to be the like NPCs like Piantas and stuff, just talking to them. Those are handled by scripts. There are also some more like specialized scripts that do different things. For example, in Delfino Plaza, there is the box breaking minigame, and that is also handled by a script. Most red coin missions are also handled by scripts. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that you can do with scripting. That's how you do a lot of things in Sunshine that are really custom. Map.col. As we discussed earlier, this is the collision model for the stage. So let me just load that up for you so you can just see that, because why not? I'll go import the collision model really quickly. And as you can see, here is the airstrip, and here's its collision model. Airplane collision model, quite chunky, quite basic, but you know, it works, man. They knew what they're doing. Nintendo knows what they're doing. Yeah. Also, you can see certain modeling practices within the collision model. Notice how this wall here just goes straight down. That's just because like Sunshine's collision engine has problems with like sloped surfaces and stuff. You'll learn and just get a feel for it as you make more models in Sunshine, but yeah, if you ever need a good eye on what's good collision practice, refer to the original game very often. But that doesn't apply always, because again, this was a game that was kind of rushed and made by Nintendo in 2002, so there's not always good things going on. For example, they forgot to delete this unused room up here, and the memory for all of its collision data is still just kind of left over. Same goes for this random circle out here. There's just kind of a random circle, and it has no reason for being here. And yeah, it just exists. It's kind of weird. But yeah, that's like a collision model. So yeah. Then message.bmg. This is where the messages for NPCs are stored, so the actual text for them. There is also another tool made by community member Josh, who basically makes everything around here. Josh is the lead coder for our team, the Eclipse team, and whatnot. Yeah, that's the BMG over here. So here is what our BMG editor looks like. The messages being named unknown. This really only affects the European version of Mario Sunshine. Pretty much this thing goes unused in every other region, so you don't really have to have them named or anything. But as you can see, for every single NPC, let's go to this one. Once it's like a Pianta, because it'll be like, "Hey there, buddy. Are you waiting for your pals or what?" All right. And so you can see over here, it has the like little simulation. It has the actual font, the actual box, and it tells you what sound it makes. So here's all the sounds that you can assign to the message. So when you talk to them, it'll make that sound. There's start frame, end frame, so you can set like when the speed of it is. There's a bunch of like commands. Also, for things that are a bit longer in text, where there's a bunch of lines, you can click this little arrow right here, and that will bring you to the next page of dialogue. It's really, really well constructed. Also, if you're doing a billboard, you can set it to billboard mode, or if you're doing a DEBS alert, you can set it to DEBS and even scroll the text along to simulate how it works. It's not one-to-one accurate with Sunshine, but it's close enough where it is in like 99% of cases. So, really awesome text editor. Just wanted to show it off because I appreciate Josh so much for this. The next thing is scene.bin, and I will go ahead and show that off right now too. So we'll go over to bin editor, that folder we made earlier. Alright, and then there should be smsscenereader.exe. So what you can do is you can drag this scene.bin and drop it over smsscenereader. Run anyways, just let it run. And that will open up this program. We're going to hit Tools and then Preview. And that will bring up our preview window of the level. So what the bin editor does is the bin editor allows us to adjust object layouts and basically make the actual like custom level itself and like organize the objects and stuff. It also handles where to put the NPCs. Every single entity in Sunshine has its own object key, where you can think of it as their name. I could name this guy Bob, but you can change different things about the game, about your level, through bin editor. Bin editor is how you edit levels. As you can see, the bin editor hasn't really been updated. It's pretty primitive. It renders kind of poopily, like the texture's transparency is completely lost. It's just kind of yellow. But it's what the community has, it's what works, and it's what we know. Josh is working on a better one, but that'll come out when it comes out. There isn't really a deadline or anything. But yeah, this is what we have, and yeah, that's just what you have to deal with. It's kind of cringe, but you get used to it. But yeah, there's parameters. I can change its position, I can change its rotation, I can change its scale, I can make it like 10 on the x-axis. Whoa, funky, look at that guy, he's a mess. Yeah, and you can just kind of mess with things. I think the best way to learn about the bin editor is just to make mistakes, because oh god, there are 1.5 billion ways to crash this game. 1.5 billion, and 90% of them are just some random thing in the bin editor. So I'll probably have to do an episode just dedicated to the bin editor. But for the purposes of our little tutorial here, I'm just going to make a very simple edit and then just use that as our way to show that the process we did worked. So I'm just going to take this box, I am going to scale it up to 4 by 4 by 5. Alright, and now I got this weird rectangularized box right here. He's chilling, he's vibing. Probably has something really big in it. So yeah, we're gonna hit File, Save our changes. Gonna close. And what we're gonna do is, now that that's saved, we're gonna go back up here to our airport folder. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take your airport folder and you're just gonna wanna drag and drop that over our RARC. And that will just make it into a file that the game can read. And once we do that, we can test our game again. I got a little shortcut here. So I'm just going to double click that, and that will start testing our game. We can just go to Delfino Airstrip, and we were editing scene 0 of Delfino Airstrip, so we're just going to hit scene 0. That'll play the cutscene. I'll skip that because it's long. Got the little loading icon, it's spinning. And give it a minute. There it goes. Now, if you get your green bar, usually it like pauses around here for a bit. That's it, like loading the level. If it never gets past like right around where my mouse is, if it never gets past there, then that usually means that your stage is consuming too much memory, and the game runs out of memory. So just like reduce the amount of stuff in your level, reduce the data consumption of your level, and then it'll stop crashing in that spot, like over around here. If you just get like a panic handler, then that could mean freaking anything. Panic handlers show up all the time. I'll probably make an entire episode just dedicated to going over some cases, case scenarios that people in the community have had with panic handlers, just to highlight some basic scenarios that can go on. Oh yes, you know how I said there's a sunscript for talking to Peach? Here it is. I didn't even talk to her. I didn't walk up and hit B. Here she is talking to me. And that just happened because I got close enough to her. So yeah, that's a good example of the sunscript stuff. And here, as you can see, our crate is super big. That is kind of what I wanted to show you for this tutorial. I hope it was in-depth enough. I feel like I went over it all pretty quickly, but I think most people should be able to follow along. This is probably the most frustrating part of the tutorial because it's the installation of all the things, and everything goes wrong during the installation. All the time. Everywhere. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.